want to turn now to the investigation into the events leading up to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. The chair of the Select Investigating Committee, Mississippi Democrat Benny Thompson, joins us from Jackson this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Before we get to that, I want to quickly ask you, since you are a progressive Democrat, what is your view? Are you disappointed that President Biden had to give up tuition-free community college and cut paid leave from 12 down to 4 weeks' time?
Well, you know, I'm a realist in the process of making legislation. It's the art of compromise. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but it's the ultimate product at the end. I know what we have at the end is good for America, and if we don't get everything in this package, we'll have another opportunity.
Well, we will watch for those details as they come out, perhaps in the days and week ahead. I want to ask you about January 6th and the work you're doing. In the past 24 hours, CBS News and other organizations have reviewed internal Facebook documents that show the company researched and identified ways to limit the spread of false news reports leading up to January 6th. Some groups, though, still use that platform to organize ahead of the violence. How culpable do you think these social media giants, specifically Facebook, are as to the violence that happened?
Well, our committee identified Facebook and some other platforms as important to our investigation. We're in the process of negotiating with Facebook and those other platforms to get certain information, but it's clear that the January 6th organization, per se, used them as an organizing tool to the extent that we can identify what really happened. That's the committee's charge from the House of Representatives. We'll do it, but at this point, Facebook is working with us to provide the necessary information we requested. At that point, staff and the committee we'll review that information, and if it's consistent with some of the things that we're hearing coming from other areas, then obviously it's a problem. But at this point, we're not ready to make a decision one way or the other on Facebook's role.
You said this week you want to know who financed the march, who chartered the buses, who chartered the airplanes that day. Do you have any of the questions regarding the finances yet?
Yes, we do. We have one of the teams on the committee whose sole purpose is to look at the financing of January 6th. The people who spent money, whether it's their money or other folks' money, it really doesn't matter, but we want that to go to the work product of the committee. We think the potential for commingling restricted funds for this purpose might be there. But obviously, we'll look at it. It's just interesting to note that a lot of people came to Washington by bus, by plane, by chartered vehicles. Yeah. They stayed in hotels, motels, all of that. Somebody had to pay for it. And we want to look at whether or not the paying for that participation was legal and whether or not it contributed to what occurred on January 6th.
When will you subpoena President Trump himself? Have you seen any direct line to him?
Well, let me say that nobody's off limits. We will be on an ongoing basis issuing subpoenas to various individuals around the country if we have enough evidence. And obviously, we are pursuing evidence, but if the evidence leads to former President Trump or anyone else, the committee is not resonant in pushing back on it. We will go forward with it. So, you know, it's an investigation. We're not trying to get ahead of the investigation. We'll follow the facts and circumstances as they present themselves.
You know, President Biden said a few days ago that the attack on the Capitol was about racism. Listen to this.
Violent, deadly insurrection on the Capitol 9 months ago. It was about white supremacy, in my view.
Has your investigation shown that to be true?
Well, clearly there are some individuals who identified with Stop the Steal movement that are part of the radical right-wing elements in this country. It's clear that those elements would love to deny people of color their rights in this democracy. So the president, in his opinion, sees it. What the committee is tasked with is looking at the facts and circumstances that made it happen. I can assure you, if the facts present what the president is saying, we won't be hesitant in making it part of our report. But I think the public saw for themselves when they saw Confederate flags, when they saw anti-Semitic symbols being displayed. Those things clearly represent a philosophy that is anti-democratic and racist.
Mm-hmm. I'd like viewers to listen to a portion of Steve Bannon's podcast from the day before that riot.
All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. It's going to be moving, it's going to be quick, and all I can say is strap in. The War Room, a posse. You have made this happen, and tomorrow it's game day.
How premeditated was this attack?
Well, there's no question. Clearly, the direction of the committee is to look at that premeditation to make sure that we identify it. But the worst kept secret in America is that Donald Trump invited individuals to come to Washington on January 6th. He said all hell would break loose. Steve Bannon was part of the conversation and the promotion of January 6th, the very podcast we just listened to talks about it.
Yeah.
Steve Bannon was in the War Room, and he was in the Willard Hotel doing a lot of things. So that's why we subpoenaed him. That's why we felt it was important for the committee and staff to depose him. But as you saw, he refused to participate.
Understood. Chairman, thank you for your time today. We'll be back with a lot more Face the Nation, so stay with us.